Forget everything you think you know about Malaysia. Because for a year, the media has been filled with lies about Malaysia that people on the internet believe were true, but turned out to be flat out lies. And as someone who comes here all the time, today we're going to talk about the top 10 biggest myths or lies that people actually still believe about Malaysia.
And as always, the rank in the order is still kind of okay, to the most terrible lies that need to stop right now. And we start off with the first one.
And the first one is people in Malaysia can't speak English. Now you might think I'm joking, but you won't believe how many times I recommend people to travel to Malaysia, and they outright tell me, do they even speak English? Which is just, I don't even know what to say. So for tourists that don't even bother to Google, here's some history stuff for you. Began in the late 18th century, the British started having control over some places in Malaysia like Penang and Malacca, and Malaysia only gained independence from British rule around the mid-20th century. So of course the people speak more than perfect English. In fact, recent reports found out that Malaysians speak the best English in all of Asia, making traveling here as easy as humanly possible.
I mean, even a quick Google search will tell you that English is literally listed as the second language of Malaysia. But that's only one area that stereotype busted, and still more to come.
But it only gets crazier from this point on, because line number 2 is that people in Malaysia are poor and everyone lives in poverty. I don't know where this even came from, but for some reason, people on the internet can't seem to believe how modern and advanced Malaysia has become since I told one of my friends who loves traveling, you should come to Malaysia. But he literally said, don't they live in poverty? And he wasn't the only one. Just go on the internet and you'll be shocked by how many first-time tourists asking, is Malaysia poor? Is Malaysia a third world country? And the most absurd of them all, do I need to bring my own water and toilet paper? Like, what do you think Malaysia is? North Korea? There are places in Malaysia more expensive than Singapore, and many everyday stuff are even more expensive than in Japan. So this is another internet stereotype that needs to stop.
And to put this to the test, I have a couple of footage here taken in Singapore, one of the richest and most advanced countries in the world. But 2 of them were actually taken in Malaysia. I doubt you can't even tell which one to switch. Or maybe you can tell me in the comments.
But the next line is so infuriating that if you're from Malaysia, you may want to take a deep breath before hearing this, because line number 3 is that Malaysian people are rude and hate foreigners, especially if you look different. Now I know people who never came to Malaysia might get worried about things like, are people nice? Are they polite? Would they try to rip me off? But Malaysia is literally the last place on earth you have to worry about any of this. As before coming to Malaysia, I was living in Japan, aka the most polite country in the world, but somehow Malaysia has outdone Japan in every aspect when it comes to being warm and welcoming. To the point where you're taking the metro, if you're an older person, people often give their seats to you and hold the door for you if you're carrying stuff, making traveling and living in Malaysia the happiest time of my life. But the same couldn't be said for line number 4, which is many people still think the entire Malaysia is only Kuala Lumpur. And no, you're not hearing stuff. This is still happening in the 21st century, especially in Western countries. Remember a joke where a teacher asked the kid to draw a map of America, and the kid literally drew a New York City and then the rest of the world? Sadly, this is also happening in Malaysia. Yes, Kuala Lumpur is big and many people live here, but it's literally only a dot on the map considering how massive Malaysia is, with cities like Malacca, Seremban in the western part of Malaysia, Kota Kinabalu, and Kuching over there in East Malaysia. So no worries, there's much more than Kuala Lumpur. Just visit here and you'll find out.
But this is kind of the same for a lot of countries, where people think Japan only has Tokyo, and Australia only has deserts and the Big Rock, which is probably true.
But what is also true is how insane the next line and stereotype about Malaysia is, because line number 5 is they think Malaysia is boring and there are only muddy roads and a bunch of jungle, despite there being more than enough videos of Malaysian cities and ocean view on the internet. Like, how is this still a thing? So Malaysia is mostly surrounded by ocean, with the state of Sabah having the longest coastline, making it the best place in the world for island hopping, water activities, or just relaxing on the beach. And if that's not enough, one of the tallest mountains in Southeast Asia is literally here in Malaysia. So no, Malaysia is never boring, and we have pretty much everything you want to see. But since we're talking about East Malaysia, I want to bring up a bonus lie that many people, including Malaysians, still believe in, and that is the people in East Malaysia live in trees and everyone's a farmer. Stereotypes don't just apply to foreigners, but many times people in the same country also have it against one another. And this is a common one I heard in big cities like Kuala Lumpur, where they believe the rest of Malaysia is still living like cavemen. And for those people, I can only say, you either come to East Malaysia to see how many things are even more advanced than Kuala Lumpur, like 24-hour supermarket and bike lanes to go anywhere, or you stay in your tiny bubble and stop spreading lies about East Malaysia.
Now there are hotels where you can live on top of a tree, but these are luxury resorts and can literally cost you hundreds of dollars.
But one thing that doesn't cost money is finding out that the list only gets worse from now on, because line number 6 is that Malaysians are lazy and nobody wants to work. Now this stereotype first came to my attention when during a business meeting, many wealthy people are discussing where is Malaysia, they invest their money in Asia, and a few of the hours are mocking Malaysia as being lazy, and they need to hire multiple people to do a single job. And this happened before I came to Malaysia decades ago, so I was wondering if that was the case, only to come here seeing people literally working longer and harder than the people in the Western countries, or even other places in Asia known for working the longest hours. And for that, I started having immense respect for everyone living here and raising their family, especially since the economy is not always good. So whatever you do, don't make this joke about Malaysia.
And as opposed to that, some people over here still work too hard. Like the guy at the convenience store over there literally works like 18 hours a day. Whenever you go there, he's always at the counter. And no, he's not a robot. Even robots need a break.
But before you worry about him, you need to worry about your own safety. Because line number 7 is Malaysia is a dangerous country, constantly living in chaos, infested with crimes, and the moment you go to an island, the pirates will come and take you away, as if we're Somalia or something. And this has come from someone who comes from America, live and travel in several Western and Asian countries, to tell you that Malaysia is quite possibly the safest country on the planet. And for years of being here, I've never seen any crime in Malaysia outside the ones you see on TV every once in a while. Now, there's some shady places in Malaysia that you should probably avoid. Yes, just like every other place, you have to use your common sense. But I used to live in Japan, and I saw way more crimes happening over there as compared to Malaysia.
Now, some of the lies and stereotypes on the list might have some truth to them, and this is one of them. As Malaysia used to be chaotic, they used to have pirates and whatnot, but that was ages ago. Come to Malaysia now and you'll be surprised how much the cities have evolved throughout the years.
Wait, maybe Malaysia is safe, but what about the traffic? They probably don't know how to drive, because line number 8 is that in Malaysia, everyone is a terrible driver. We're always stuck in traffic jam, drive super slow, and as soon as the traffic light turns green, we all start honking at one another right away. And for all the tourists still believing in that, I can confidently tell you that some of that is probably true, but I think this first came from tourists believing that Southeast Asia in general is highly populated and the cities weren't designed in a way to be used by so many people, leading to the terrible traffic and all the chaos you see on the news. But Malaysia has improved so much since decades ago, with public transportation like buses and even the metro in the city, as well as domestic flights becoming more and more common. Driving is no longer the only way to get around, so the traffic actually got a lot better. And regarding Malaysians being bad drivers, my local friends told me that the local bus drivers are known for being able to drive perfectly while watching videos on their iPad. I don't know if this is something we want to brag about though, but at least Malaysians are nothing like what line number 9 believes to be true, and that is that people here are loud and noisy, as if we're always live streaming our lives in public. Now it's hard to determine whether a country is loud and noisy without knowing who they're comparing us with. I mean, we're louder than North Pole, that's for sure, but in my years of traveling around, Malaysian travelers in hostels or capsule hotels are always the most polite and don't really make much noise, even when they're traveling with a family or as a group, and nobody's really making loud noises inside the restaurant or movie theater, etc. So I sincerely don't know where this stereotype even came from.
But if you want to go to the noisiest place in the world, why would you want that? I do not want to know. But here, based on the internet, you have China, India, and New York City, and America. Have fun!
Well, what's really hard to make fun with is seeing how many people that never came to Malaysia still ask about this all the time on the internet, and that is line number 10. They believe Malaysia is just like Afghanistan or Iran, where everyone is Muslim, and it's impossible for tourists to buy beer or alcohol despite Malaysia being one of the most diverse countries in all of Asia. As a quick search on Wikipedia will tell you that Malaysia as of 2020 is 63.5% Muslim, 18.7% Buddhist, 9.1% Christian, and 6.1% Hinduism, which become even more apparent when you come to Malaysia and see mosques, churches, Chinese and Hindu temples oftentimes on the same street, telling you how everyone from different parts of the world found their home in Malaysia, and despite people having different religions, they all become friends, just like I also made friends of all ethnicity and religious belief during my time in Malaysia. And for tourists, your hotels are probably selling the drinks you're looking for in the hotel restaurants.
But the biggest lie or stereotype about Malaysia, as well as all the countries out there, is that people and things don't change. In fact, everything is changing and improving all the time. And before you get to see anything for yourself, don't believe in any of the rumors on the internet easily. But now that you're ready to visit here, I got 10 of the biggest mistakes that tourists in Malaysia make all the time, and you can watch the video right now.